The colony rested under a pale blue sky that never changed. Soft winds moved across the fields, carrying the smell of warm soil and clean water. It was a quiet place at the edge of human space, far away from the noise of the core worlds. Elias Grant walked along a dirt path beside the farming domes. His steps were slow, calm, and steady. He was not wearing a uniform anymore. Those days were behind him. Now he wore simple clothes, like everyone else on the colony. At his side walked his daughter, Lily. She was small, with bright eyes that watched everything with curiosity. She held a small metal toy in her hand, shaped like a starship. She liked to pretend it could fly. "Is it true," Lily asked, looking up at him, "that no one can hurt kids like me?" Elias looked down at her. For a moment, he did not answer. Then he gave a small nod. "Yes," he said. "It is a law. Everyone knows it." "Even aliens?" "Even them," he said. Lily smiled and went back to her game, making soft flying sounds. Elias watched her, but his face did not relax. He had heard the same law many times in his life. It was repeated in every meeting, every treaty, every story about the wider galaxy. Do not attack human children. It was not a kind rule. It was not made from love. It was made from fear. Elias had seen war before. He knew what humans could do when pushed too far. He had been part of it once. Long ago, that was why he came here, to this quiet place, far from trouble. But even here, he never fully relaxed. Above them, high in the sky, a faint shape moved. Most people would not notice it. It looked like a small star in the daylight, but Elias saw it. A ship. He stopped walking. "What is it?" Lily asked. "Nothing," he said quickly. "Just a satellite." But he kept watching. The colony had a few small defense systems. Nothing serious. This place was not important. It was not a target. At least, that was what everyone believed. Far away, beyond the colony sky, a group of dark ships waited in silence. Their shapes were sharp and strange, not like human designs. Their surfaces were covered in shifting lines of dim light. Inside one of the ships, a virus commander studied a glowing display. The colony appeared as a small point of light. Target confirmed. One of the officers said. The commander did not speak at once. His long fingers tapped slowly against the console. "No military presence," the officer added. "Minimal defenses. Civilian population only." The commander tilted his head. "And the children?" he asked. There was a pause. "Present," the officer said. The room grew quiet. Every being in that ship knew the law. It had been taught for generations. Humans were dangerous, but their children were untouchable. The commander looked at the distant colony again. "The council approved this," he said. No one answered. "We proceed," he said at last. Back on the surface, Elias and Lily reached their home. It was a small building, simple but strong. Other homes stood nearby, forming a close community. Neighbors waved as they passed. Life here was easy, safe. Elias opened the door and let Lily run inside. "Dinner soon," he said. She nodded and ran to her room. Elias stepped back outside for a moment. He looked up at the sky again. The faint shape was still there. Then it was gone. His stomach tightened. Something was wrong. The first strike came without warning. The sky flashed white. A loud sound followed, so strong it shook the ground. Windows shattered across the colony. People fell to the ground in shock. Elias turned and ran inside. "Lily!" he shouted. She screamed from her room. Another blast hit, closer this time. The walls trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling. Elias reached her and pulled her close. "Stay with me," he said. Outside, alarms began to sound. A weak defense system tried to respond, sending small bursts of fire into the sky. It did nothing. The ships above were too powerful. Elias grabbed a small emergency pack from a wall. He moved quickly, his old training returning without thought. "We have to go," he said. "What is happening?" Lily cried. He did not answer. He could not. The streets were chaos. People ran in all directions. Some shouted for help. Others tried to reach shelters. Fires burned where buildings had been struck. Elias held Lily's hand tightly as they moved through the crowd. "This way," he said. He led her toward an underground access point near the edge of the colony. It was an old tunnel system built for emergencies. Another strike hit nearby. The ground cracked. A building collapsed in a cloud of dust. Lily stumbled, but Elias caught her. "Keep moving," he said. Above them, shapes began to fall from the sky. Dropships. Elias felt a cold wave move through his body. This was not just an attack from above. They were coming down. The tunnel entrance was half open. A few people were already inside, pulling others in. Elias pushed forward. "Make space," he said. They saw his face and moved. There was something in his eyes that made them listen. He pulled Lily inside and turned back just in time to see the first Virex soldiers land. They moved fast, their forms dark and sharp. Weapons glowed in their hands. They did not hesitate. They fired. People fell. Screams filled the air. Elias pulled the hatch closed. The sounds outside became dull, but they did not stop. Lily buried her face in his chest. "Why are they doing this?" she whispered. Elias held her tightly. He had no answer that she could understand. Above them, the law of the galaxy had just been broken, and far away, in the silent dark between the stars, humanity would soon learn what had been done. The tunnel was dark and cold. The air smelled of dust and metal. Small lights flickered along the walls, barely strong enough to show the path ahead. Elias sat against the wall with Lily in his arms. She had stopped crying, but her body still shook. Around them, other survivors sat in silence. Some whispered, some stared at nothing. The sound from above had faded, but that did not bring comfort. Elias knew what it meant. The attack was not over. It had just changed. A man nearby spoke in a low voice. "They are still out there," he said. "I heard them, moving, searching." No one answered him. Elias closed his eyes for a moment. He listened carefully. Faint vibrations moved through the ground. Heavy steps. Not human. Virex patrols. He opened his eyes and looked at the group. "We cannot stay here long," he said. A woman looked at him. "Where can we go?" "Deeper tunnels," he said. "There are exits outside the colony. We move quietly. No lights. No noise. And if they find us?" Elias did not hesitate. "Then we run," he said. Far above, human space remained silent. A patrol ship drifted near the outer edge of the system. It had received a signal from the colony. Broken. Weak. But enough. Inside the ship, an officer stared at the screen. "Repeat that," she said. The signal played again. Fragments of sound. Explosions. Screams. And one clear line. "Children under attack." The room went still. "Confirm origin," she said. "Frontier colony," another officer replied. "No military value." She stood slowly. "Send it," she said. The message moved fast. Across systems, across fleets, across command networks that had been quiet for years. When it reached high command, there was no long debate. Only one word was sent in return. Confirmed. Admiral Nora Blake stood in the center of her command deck. The stars outside the wide window looked calm, almost peaceful. An officer handed her a sealed data chip. She took it and read the contents. Her face did not change. "Orders, Admiral?" The officer asked. She looked up. "Activate Protocol 9, she said. The officer froze for a moment. "Protocol 9 has not been used in—" "I know," she said. Her voice was calm. "Do it." Deep in hidden space, something began to wake. Old ships powered on. Systems that had been silent for decades came back to life. Fleets moved without lights, without signals. Humanity did not shout. It prepared. Back in the tunnels, Elias led the group forward. He moved slowly, checking each turn before stepping ahead. Lily stayed close to him, holding his hand. "Are we safe?" she asked. "Not yet," he said. They reached a split in the tunnel. Elias stopped. He listened. A faint sound came from the left path. Metal against stone. He turned to the right. "This way," he said. They moved again. Minutes passed. Maybe longer. Time felt strange underground. Then they heard it. A loud crash behind them. The group froze. A voice echoed through the tunnel. Harsh. Alien. The Virex had found an entrance. run, Elias said. They ran. The tunnel shook as something hit the walls behind them. Dust fell from above. The lights flickered and died, leaving only darkness. People cried out, but Elias kept moving. He knew the layout. He had studied it when he first arrived on the colony. He never forgot things like that. Ahead, a faint light appeared. An exit. Almost there, he said. They pushed forward. Behind them, the sound pursuit grew louder. They reached the exit and forced it open. Cold air rushed in. They stepped out into a rocky field beyond the colony. The sky above was filled with smoke and distant fire. Dropships moved like dark shadows overhead. Elias turned to help the others out. Then he saw movement on the ridge. Virex soldiers. They had moved faster than expected. Down, he shouted. Energy blasts struck the ground around them. Stones shattered. People fell. Elias pulled Lily behind a rock. His heart pounded, but his mind was clear. This was not random. This was a hunt. And somewhere far away, humanity had already begun to answer. The shot stopped for a moment. Smoke drifted over the rocks, and the air felt sharp and cold. Elias kept his body low and held Lily close behind the cover. He looked around. A few survivors were still moving, hiding behind stones and broken ground. Others were too still. The Virex soldiers stood on the ridge above. Their forms were dark against the sky. They did not rush. They moved with care, like hunters who knew their prey could not escape. Elias took a slow breath. Listen to me, he whispered to Lily. Stay behind me. Do not move unless I tell you. She nodded, her eyes wide but quiet. Elias looked for a way out. The open ground was dangerous. The ridge gave the enemy a clear view. But to the right, there was a narrow drop, leading to a lower path filled with broken stone. It was risky, but it was something. We go that way, he said. He waited for a loud sound above, then moved. He pulled Lily with him and ran low across the ground. A few others followed. Energy fire returned at once. Bright flashes struck the rocks around them. One man fell beside Elias, but he did not stop. They reached the drop and slid down into the lower path. The fall was rough, but it broke the line of sight. For a moment, there was silence. Elias helped Lily up. Good, he said softly. You did well. But he knew they were not safe. Above the planet, the human fleet arrived without warning. They did not send signals. They did not ask questions. They appeared. Dark ships moved out of nothing, as if space itself opened for them. Their shapes were simple, but heavy. Old designs, built for war. Admiral Nora Blake stood on the command deck of the lead ship. Her eyes were fixed on the planet below. Status, she said. Enemy vessels in orbit. An officer replied. Multiple targets. No formation. They were not expecting us, another said. Nora nodded once. Begin, she said. The first human strike was silent. A beam of light crossed the void in an instant. One Virex ship vanished. Not damaged, not broken, gone. Then another, and another. The Virex fleet tried to respond, but their systems failed. Their weapons could not lock. Their shields flickered and died. Within minutes, the sky belonged to humanity. On the surface, Elias felt a low tremor in the ground. He looked up. Through the smoke, he saw a light in the sky. Not fire, something else. Controlled, precise. The Virex ships above began to fall, burning as they broke apart. The soldiers on a ridge paused. For the first time, they looked uncertain. Elias understood. They came, he said. Lily looked up. Who? Our people, he said. The Virex soldiers changed their plan. They no longer hunted slowly. They moved fast now, trying to finish what they started. They rushed down the ridge. Elias stood up. He had no weapon, but he knew how to move. Stay behind me, he said again. The first soldier reached the lower path. Elias stepped forward and struck it with a piece of broken metal. The hit was not strong enough to destroy, but it forced the soldier back. Others followed. The survivors scattered, trying to avoid the attack. Then a new sound cut through the chaos. A sharp crack from above. One of the Virex soldiers fell. Then another. Elias looked up. Figures moved along the ridge. Human soldiers. Silent. Fast. Exact. They fired with care, each shot finding its mark. Within seconds, the Virex force was gone. The field fell quiet. A human soldier approached Elias. His armor was dark, his face hidden behind a visor. "Civilian secure," the soldier said into his comm. Elias let out a breath he did not know he was holding. Lily stepped out from behind him. "Are we safe now?" she asked. The soldier looked at her for a moment. "Yes," he said. But far above, the real answer was still being written. The rescue did not stop at the field. Human forces spread across the colony with speed and control. Dropships landed in clean lines. Soldiers moved through the streets, clearing buildings and guiding survivors to safe zones. Elias and Lily were taken to a temporary shelter near the edge of the colony. It was guarded, quiet, and filled with soft lights. Medics moved between the injured. Voices were calm, steady, and focused. Elias sat on a bench while Lily rested beside him. She held his arm tightly, as if letting go would make everything return. A medic checked them both. "No major injuries," she said. "You are safe here." Elias nodded, but his eyes were not calm. He knew what came next. In orbit, the human fleet advanced. The Virex forces were breaking apart. Their ships tried to flee, but there was nowhere to go. Admiral Nora Blake watched the battle without emotion. "Target command vessel," she said. "Locked," an officer replied. "End it." A single strike cut through space. The Virex command ship split in two and drifted apart in silence. The rest of the fleet followed soon after. There was no long fight, only a result. Far from a battlefield, the Galactic Council gathered in panic. Voices rose. Some blamed the Virex. Others blamed each other. Some tried to deny what had happened. But the reports were clear. The law had been broken. Human children had been attacked. And now humanity had answered. Back on the colony, Elias stood at the edge of the shelter and looked out at the ruins. Smoke still rose from broken buildings. The ground was marked with fire and damage. A human officer approached him. "You were military," she said. It was not a question. Elias nodded. "Long ago," he said. She studied him for a moment. "We may need your help," she said. "You know the terrain. You know how they move." Elias looked back at Lily. She watched him quietly. He turned back to the officer. "Tell me what to do," he said. The next phase began at once. Human forces did not stop with defense. They moved outward, tracking every Virex signal, every hidden base, every remaining unit. Elias worked with them, guiding small teams through the land beyond the colony. He showed them paths, weak points, and safe routes. The Virex tried to resist, but it did not last. Each time they gathered, they were found. Each time they fought, they lost. There was no anger in the human advance, only purpose. In the command ship above, Nora Blake received a message from the council, a request, a plea. She read it once and then closed the file. "No reply," she said. "Admiral," an officer said, "they are asking for terms." Nora looked at the stars. "They had terms," she said. "They broke them." The officer said nothing more. On the ground, the last Virex unit near the colony was cornered in a narrow valley. Elias stood with the human team at the edge of the ridge. Below, the enemy waited. He felt no fear now, only a heavy silence. "End it," the team leader said. The strike was fast. When it was over, the valley was still. Elias closed his eyes for a moment. The fight here was done. But the message had only just begun. The war ended faster than anyone expected. Across the stars, Virex forces fell one by one. Their bases were found and taken. Their ships were destroyed or captured. Their leaders disappeared. There was no long campaign. There was no slow push. Humanity moved with speed and certainty, as if the outcome had already been decided. The Galactic Council had no choice left. They sent a final message to humanity. This time, it was not a request. It was surrender. They admitted what had been done. They accepted blame. They offered full cooperation. They asked for one thing in return: mercy. Admiral Nora Blake read the message in silence. The command deck was quiet. Every officer waited. At last she spoke. "Hold position," she said. The fleet stopped. No more strikes. No more movement. Just silence. On the colony, rebuilding had already begun. Temporary shelters turned into strong structures. Supplies arrived from nearby systems. Medical ships landed with more support. Life did not return to normal, but it began to move forward. Elias stood outside a new building with Lily beside him. She held her small Starship toy again. It was scratched now, but still whole. "Is it over?" she asked. Elias looked at the sky. The human ships were still there, quiet and watchful. "Yes," he said, "it is over." She nodded slowly. "Will they come back?" Elias shook his head. "No," he said, "not after this." Days later, a message was sent across the galaxy. It came from humanity. It was simple, clear, and final. The first law of the galaxy would remain. No one would touch human children. Not again. The Council accepted new terms. Strict limits were placed on all actions near human space. New systems were built to watch and report any movement. The old balance was gone. A new one had taken its place. Elias returned to a quiet life. He worked with the colony, helping rebuild what was lost. He stayed close to Lily, never far, never careless. At night, the sky looked the same as before. Calm, still, but now, everyone knew what stood behind that calm. They knew what would happen if the line was crossed again. Lily stood outside one evening, looking up at the stars. "They are watching," she said. Elias stood beside her. "Yes," he said. "To keep us safe?" He thought for a moment. "Yes," he said, "and to remind everyone else." Lily smiled and held her toy ship up to the sky. Far above, real ships waited in silence. The galaxy would not forget them, and it would never forget the law again.